Hi, my name's Sue Brown. I'm part of the U3A Dramana Writers Group, and I'd like to read you a short piece. It's called Electoral Role. He was irritated being disturbed by the front doorbell and was even more exasperated when he glanced at a little old lady wearing a peculiar hat on his doorstep, clutching the local candidate's pamphlet. "Can I help you?" he asked. She beamed up at him. "It's me, Granny. Don't you recognize me, darling? Oh, you're so handsome." And she looked up at him expectantly. "Aren't you going to ask me in?" He stared at the stranger, slightly perplexed. Realizing the lady could be suffering from some form of dementia, and it was probable she lived in the neighborhood, he said, "Yes, of course, Gran. Bit distracted. Come on in, I'll get you some tea." She shuffled ahead of him and went directly into the sitting room. Odd, he thought, but she settled down onto the chair facing the window. She had no handbag or coat with her, and she was wearing just a thin summer dress. He realized the pamphlet probably came from his own postbox, and he left her fleetingly to put on the kettle. On his return, she was wandering around the room, touching various items. Then she got to the tea caddy. She murmured, "My mother's." "I'm so glad you have it," and looked up at him fondly. She sat down in the chair again and looked around the room. "How is Grandad?" he asked tentatively. "Okay," she said. "Not an easy man, although you probably do not realize that. Very demanding in some quarters, if you know what I mean." And she giggled. He was acutely embarrassed and wondered how he was going to get out of this. But then she started to chat about the tough times in her life, often muddling up generations, trying to correct herself, but still clearly getting it wrong. He found himself amused by her stories, but since no one had knocked on the door to find her, he thought he had best call the police. So giving an excuse to make more tea, he got up to go to the kitchen. As if on cue, the doorbell went, and for the second time that day he was faced by a stranger, an elderly man immaculately dressed with a Homburg hat, which he lifted as a greeting. "I'm looking for my wife," he explained. "I'm sorry, she appears to have wandered off." The dapper man followed him through the sitting room, and after briefly but kindly remonstrating with the woman, they were off out of the door, shuffling up the road and round the corner. In the next street, they got into a car and drove eastward. "You okay?" he asked. She removed her hat, displaying a Regency solid silver tea caddy perched on her head, and grinned at him. "Yep, about $10,000 worth," she said, laughing. "And us being good citizens, still working way into our 80s with no need of a state pension. Our local member should be very proud of us." Thank you for listening.